practicing to beat somebody. We're practicing to beat everybody.
My expectation is we go out and dominate and create a nightmare and make people never want to play you again.
If you are a fan of another team and your coach is not out there doing everything that Kirby Smart is doing right now, you are already losing. You feel however you want to feel about that.
Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide for 4 quarters. They got to see us in our house for 4 quarters. They got to look us in the eye for 4. This is about us and our family and our house. This is about us. This is our mentality. We ain't backing down. We ain't running. Set a tone, send a message. This is our house. Physical toughness wins in football now. And if you in this room, you got it. And if you come in here, you better believe in it. Because this physical toughness, it's what makes the difference. Elite focus. That's all I'm doing to the guy across from me. I'm fixing to whip his ass. Not in my box, not today. It's about us, it's about our family. We attack. You take that helmet and you strike them, and you strike them, and you strike them. That's how you get respect. Physically, I want to break them.
SEC Media Days, Day 4, Thursday. They came to a close today, and you could make the argument that maybe this was not the most interesting day on a national scale, but here inside the conference, there's always something to be talking about and being interested in terms of who we might play. And of course, when we look at the schedule today, of course, there's another team that Georgia is going to play this year, and that's the Kentucky Wildcats, but we'll get to them in a minute. I'm just happy to say that we made it to the end. I hope you guys have enjoyed all the shows this week. I've certainly had a lot of fun trying to pull it all together for you, and I definitely am smarter about the conference than when we started this whole thing. So let's take a look at Day 4. Here it is. You see it. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, and Texas A&M. Now, when you first look at this grouping, you're going to say, are there any championship contenders in this group? At first blush, you might say no, but I would tell you to take another look because there's a lot of belief in Texas A&M this year. There's a lot of things going right for them. Or are they just going to end up being the same old Texas A&M that they always are? Or is this the year they're actually going to break through? The Missouri Tigers is a team that is sort of sneaking around the chicken coop a little bit. They're going to be more dangerous than maybe people are giving them credit for. Did you know that they opened their first 6 games of the season at home? And if we keep moving it across, yes, Kentucky's in a rebuilding year, but they've turned the roster over completely. Mark Stoops swears that they're going to get back to being who they are. We will find out. And then you have Sam Pittman and Arkansas. Now, I love media days when Sam Pittman is there. The very first SEC media days that I went to, Pittman stepped right up to the podium and he was talking about, I got to go have me a cold beer. And from there, if I didn't love him already from his days at Georgia, if I didn't love him already, because I've always sort of low-key rooted for Arkansas, and if I didn't love him already, just because I don't know that there's a better fit anywhere in terms of personality and character and all that sort of stuff than Sam Pittman in the SEC, and more specifically at Arkansas, which he holds near and dear to his heart for a myriad of reasons. So every time I see the Arkansas Razorbacks at SEC Media Days and Sam Pittman is on the stage, it's one of my favorite days. But with all that said, you just don't know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to come out of the mouths of the people at SEC Media Days. And I got to tell you, today, there was some crazy stuff you didn't see coming. It certainly was not boring. But we're going to start with the Arkansas Razorbacks. I just told you I have a deep affinity for Sam Pittman and for the Razorbacks. I always have. It goes way back, a little bit of story time. It goes way back to when my dad was watching football and I was a little wee one. And the era of football that they were playing in was one where the Arkansas Razorbacks were in the grade 8, the Big 8, right? And again, this was a history long before I ever came along. And then for whatever reason, my dad had just taken an affinity to the Arkansas Razorbacks. I don't even know the story behind it. He just said that they were always a hard-nosed football team. They played hard. He enjoyed watching them. Now, it's not like we sat down and watched Razorback games together. That never happened. But every time the subject came up, he had something nice to say about them. And then during my formative years of watching football, you had players, that were tremendous for Arkansas. You had Clint Sterner. You had just name after name, walk-on story after walk-on story. You had always seeming to win in upset fashion. Like they were always the underdog, but yet they would come up and beat a team that maybe they weren't supposed to beat. So I was rooting for them. And then, of course, you have Darren McFadden, and the list goes on and on of great running backs they had there, Peyton Hillis, and so on. So Arkansas, I have an affinity for them just like my dad did, and I always want to see them do well. And I really want to see them do well because Pittman's there. I mean, as Georgia fans, we have a soft spot in our heart for Pitt Boss, for the things he did at the University of Georgia. If he were to not be the head coach at Arkansas, I doubt he's going to be coaching much longer anyway. But if he ever wanted to, I would take him back at Georgia in a heartbeat. And I don't care who the current offensive line coach is. Just my opinion. I would love to have Pitt Boss join us for that, because he is that kind of guy, right? He's the kind of guy that everybody can love. He's the kind of guy that you could sit down and have a cold beer with. But college football is a lot more than who you just want to hang out with. As much as I love Sam Pittman, the bottom line is you have to win football games. And he was asked about it directly today at the podium. He was like, why are you on the hot seat, quote unquote, every year? How does that affect what you do? And Sam said, well, frankly, it doesn't bother me at all, because if it's another coach, obviously I don't care. But if it affects anything, it affects recruiting. And then he went on to tell the story of the situation of Arkansas right now, and how in the new age, the new era of college football, the things they're having to overcome to be competitive. But he wasn't the only one that showed up in Atlanta. Of course not. He had people with him, including his star quarterback, Taylon Green, who's back. And there are a lot of people who are expecting a lot of things from Taylon Green this year. He is definitely talented. He can definitely scare opposing defenses. But the question is, can he be consistent? He's recently engaged, so it appears he's got his off-the-field life in order. Now it's time to see what he can do for the Razorbacks. And Sam didn't really hold back. I was actually a little impressed with the way he stepped to the podium, not just because it was Sam, but because of what he said. He came right out and said, I think we've got a really good football team. Now, if you look back at what happened last year to Arkansas, you might just say, why is he saying that, given, they've had movement in the portal and so on and so forth, and they didn't have a great year last year. Some might say they underachieved. Why is he saying that now? It's because they've rebuilt it, and they've rebuilt it in an image of himself and what he wants them to be: aggressive, fast, that sort of thing. But that's enough of me talking about it. I actually have somebody here who knows something about Arkansas, who follows them a lot more closely than I do. And that would be my good buddy, Ty Hudson of the Tusk Talk with Ty podcast here on YouTube. Ty, man, how's it going?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's a long time no see. Yeah, but it's good when we can get you on here. I mean, I like to reach out across the conference, and it's always good to reach out to Arkansas. I'll say that.
Hey, well, I appreciate it, man. The feeling is mutual. I need to do a better job of bringing on some other outside Arkansas influencers onto the channel a little more. But it's always awesome to come on here. And I was on Mark Rogers live earlier, and then I've got you today, and then I've got a Patreon video I got to knock out. I mean, it is on the grind today, my man.
This whole week has been crazy. I've now reached out 16 teams, so that means that I've had at least 14 different guests on this week.
Wow.
So we've done, as many as we can squeeze into every show every night. So we've recapped every day. It's been busy. There's no doubt. So what was it that you heard from Sam and the boys today in Atlanta? And we can get into specifics in a minute, but in general, what do you think as a Hogs fan? How did it sound?
Well, to be honest with you, I knew I had a feeling the talk would be about Little Rock. Mm-hmm. I had a feeling that would come up. I love the way he answered that, by the way. I am a pro keep games in Fayetteville guy, and no, not because I'm born and raised up here. Just I think it puts you at a huge recruiting disadvantage, as I said on Mark Rogers' show earlier today. So I loved his response to that. Some of the other stuff, I had people in my Discord that were like, oh, he sounds drunk, and oh, he's saying he's so terrible. And I'm like, I don't know what you want him to say. We knew he was going to get asked some of these questions. I don't know that he messed up. He didn't look that nervous to me. And, he he was asked the difficult questions. He was asked about the money situation and players, the mass exodus that's been going on at Arkansas. And that's not something you want to have to deal with. But you know what? By God, he stood up there and he answered the questions. He even said at one point, you'd have to ask the players. And I think that's probably the right response. I mean, you never want to, when you're at these things and you're the head coach and you're at this SEC Media Day, this is a big deal, especially, to not just people who create the content around it, but also the SEC network. It's a whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. So presentation matters and the way you respond does matter. And I kind of thought he was kind of said exactly, you know what? It's like he does when he's here. He responds appropriately. And I for the most part, has he said some things in the past that were head scratchers, like the I didn't know what to do, the infamous I didn't know what to do line, which has really rubbed local media around here the wrong way and fans too, and rightfully so. But for the most part, I think as a representative of Arkansas, you don't want to talk about money problems. You don't want to come out and say, yeah, no, we're broke as hell.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on with our NIL or the collective. And I know he sees a bright future with the collective. He seems to believe that it's going to even the playing field, so to speak. I don't know about that, but I guess we'll see. But no, I thought he, for the most part, I'd give him a solid B minus, B plus, somewhere, or B minus to B, somewhere in there. I thought he did fine. He, when he was asked about the mass exodus thing, I kind of wondered if he was going to go into more detail, if he was only going to be surface level, and he was mostly surface level on it. And there's no doubt Arkansas has a money problem when it comes to football. And for anyone, I know obviously you're the Georgia guy here, and Georgia fans probably some folks. I've had a few wander into my streams. They think we're all barefoot and riding horses everywhere, and we don't have cars. They think we're kind of living in the 1800s, some of them. But it's actually, there's a lot of money here.
Yeah.
In Northwest Arkansas. I don't think I have to remind people one of the biggest companies in the world is located not that far down I-49 from the university. A lot of donors come up are from this area, not just Little Rock, right?
Right.
And I can tell you, I think the money situation would be switched if there was something to be excited about. And there's just not. Whereas basketball, Musselman comes in. We thought he was a good coach, but we didn't think he would do what he did by year 2. And all of a sudden you're going to back-to-back Elite Eights, 3 straight Sweet 16s. We haven't done that since the 90s.
Right.
Like it was incredible. And what do you know? The money came through. They could go into the portal. And I realize that's a 13 or so roster versus 80 plus. I get that. But when you create some excitement, Arkansas fans, the business people, the business community, even the millionaires and some of the billionaires will contribute. There's just not a lot to be excited about. And so I kind of wondered if maybe the media might word the question something like that without being so obtuse, without being like a complete butthole about it. But, do you think maybe, Sam, there's a lack of excitement and that might lead into why your NIL struggled the way that it did? And that question wasn't asked specifically. I know they asked about the pass rush, which it's a fair question.
Yeah.
They weren't very good at it last year, and I really don't think they're going to be that good at it this year either. I could be wrong. Looking at Quincy Rhodes, I hope he's the answer to all the questions. But I think he handled himself well up on the podium. He didn't dance around anything. It was kind of typical Sam. Again, it's not. I don't know what fans sometimes want him to say at these things. Like, let's be real. You and I both know. I've been doing this for a while, and so have you. You've been doing it a lot longer than I have.
Yeah.
Let's be real. The real answers come in the hallways.
Yes.
The real, if you want to find out the nitty gritty, don't worry about what he says up on the podium. Who cares? That's just the dog and pony show up there, my friend. You want to look and see when he's saying to the media that surround him in the hallway, when they're talking to him, and the players too. You're going to get more, and you might get a little bit more detail out of them too. And I think we've gotten a little bit. Like, for example, we found out about Ishmael Cece, a wide receiver that got out of the portal they thought was going to be a heavy contributor. He's out for the year. And we didn't find that out on the podium. He told that to the media before he got on the podium.
Right. And then I think he had to address it quickly from the
Yeah.
podium and say, we've lost him for the year. And so
Yep.
there you go. And to your point specifically, I was going to actually ask you to, if you knew anything from the pre-stage local media gaggles that they hold with the players and the coaches. You know, they get them in a room by themselves and they have maybe a half hour with them. I don't know if you've gotten any leads out of that or anything from the digital drive or whatever it was from the radio calls today, you know, like if they got him to say anything. But I was curious if you heard anything.
I hadn't heard anything. To be fair, I've been doing I've been trying to keep up with some of the SEC media days. Like I said, I did the Mark Rogers thing earlier today. I'm on here now. I had to cook dinner. It was kind of a crazy day. I really was trying to stay glued to what I could. We do have Courtney Mims in our Discord who does a fantastic job of getting us all caught up in our Patreon part of the Discord. You got to be a paid member to have access to that part of the Discord. And she'll drop some really good information. I haven't had a chance to talk to her yet, and I haven't had a chance to really consume much Arkansas content around, in this space, but I am expecting probably something. If I haven't heard it yet, other than the Ismail CC thing, there might be something else floating out around there. If I haven't heard it yet, it couldn't have been too big of a deal because my Discord would be going absolutely wild about it. But nothing big. But never say never. I'm sure something's going to sneak through the cracks. Something that may sound like a small thing. Then come to find out, it turns out to be an even bigger deal, nothing yet. Again, other than the CC thing, but I kind of expected the players to slip up a little bit. Sometimes they'll drop a little tidbit of something, and I don't think we get, they do coach these guys now. So they coach them on the media.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They're getting
better. Okay. So, well, then let's do this. If you could sort of explain to my fan base, remember we're coming at it from outside the bubble, right? So if you will offer a little insight into the discussion around Arkansas and Arkansas State, Little Rock, right? And what you were talking about there off the top, like what that means, because in case people don't remember, Butch Jones is at Arkansas State. Not that has a lot to do with it, just to set the table. And there is a question about whether that game would be a home and home moving forward, or if they're going to continue to play. Please fill them in, because that's about the best I can do right now. And I'm with you. I thought Sam answered it well, saying no, it's going to be this way or no way. So I'm with him in that. I'm in full agreement.
Yeah, so this has been an ongoing debate in Arkansas for probably the better part of going back probably since around the Petrino time. And I think it was either Petrino or Jeff Long got on one of the local radio shows up here and had kind of let it slip a little bit. And it wasn't like breaking news. Of course, back then, Twitter wasn't what it is now. It was actually Twitter back then. It's X now.
Right.
I think had this happened today, had Hunter Yurchek gone on, let's say Chuck and Bo's show and said this, probably would have been a pretty big deal. But back then it just kind of slipped under I heard it live on radio and I was like, oh, okay. What he said was, and I swear it was Jeff Long that said this, that they had to treat playing in Little Rock like an away game. That it was kind of not like, obviously it's a home crowd, it's a home stadium, but in terms of the actual, getting everyone down there and just the logistics of it all and how much money it costs. And, you got to put these guys up in hotels down there. Now, to be fair, that's also true up here, apparently. Brett Bielema also had said that in Fayetteville, they actually still stay in a hotel room, which I hope I heard that wrong, but he said they stay in a hotel in Springdale. And I don't know why they don't just stay in their dorms. I guess maybe so they can all get on their bus and go in. I guess thinking about it, that might actually make sense.
Well, I know that for years, Georgia did that. Even right there in Athens, they would stay at the Georgia Center for Continuing Education. They would bring them together the night before the game. And then in Coach Rick's years, they would actually leave the on-campus site and go to a local hotel downtown. They'd catch a movie, stay at the hotel, and then come back in. But they were just trying to lock them down. Now, I don't know exactly what the routine is today, but that's what it was for the last, for the first 15 years of this century. So, and I haven't, even when I had credentials and I could go to practice,
I didn't even think to ask back then if that's what they were doing. But yeah, so yeah, Brett had said that they do that and they stay in a hotel in Springdale. So Jeff Long had said on the radio that they had to travel down to Little Rock. You know, they got to pay for the hotel, and then they got to do all this other stuff. You got to bring your equipment team down. The gas alone is ridiculous. So it's a big deal. The logistics of it's a lot more difficult. And you see why. And so after hearing that, I remember thinking, you know, on my way I was actually leaving work on my way home. And I remember thinking, you know what, that actually kind of makes sense. Like, okay, I get why Little Rock is such a, you know, okay, well then what else could it be? It also, and fans didn't realize this up until about a decade ago, you can't bring recruits to Little Rock.
Right. It's just like Jacksonville for Georgia, Florida.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. You cannot bring, and so they're already doing that. Now they only play at Little Rock every other year. And the original plan was they're going to play down there every other year. And then they were going to do, which is so stupid, they're going to do every other year. When the year falls on a season where they're not going down there to play a regular season game, they would have the red-white game down there, which is so ridiculous.
Wow.
It's one of the craziest things I heard. I remember at the time thinking, that is dumb, dumb, dumb. Why are you doing this? Not only do you have this game every other year in Little Rock, you've been going down to the house that Jones built in Arlington for how long?
Mm-hmm.
So you've already been doing that. You can't bring visitors to that either. So you're at a huge recruiting disadvantage. And it's time to get out of there. That's kind of where it's one of the pillars of off-season discussion between building Nolan Richardson a statue outside of Bud Walton Arena. That's an ongoing kind of a debate. There's people who cannot stand the way he left. And then there's should we still be playing in Little Rock? You know, and I think it's done. I think this will officially be the last game down in Little Rock. They did make a statement. Sam said something that just really threw me off. He said that it was up to the governor.
Yeah, I heard that.
That's news to me. The stadium, if I'm not mistaken, it is owned by the state, by Parks and Rec, by Arkansas, by the state of Arkansas. But it's Arkansas's choice whether or not they're going to play there. So,
and Arkansas is a land grant university, right?
What is that?
Just like the University of Georgia. In other words, the state gave them the property to build the university. It is the flagship university of the state of Arkansas, right? The University of Arkansas, right? So,
okay, yeah,
I would assume. I mean, obviously that brings it a little bit closer. It's not like they're a private entity or whatever trying to come in there, you know. That figures in on some level.
Well, it's still. I would think at the end of the day, it's just up to the athletic director. Like, are we going to play down there or not? I don't know. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it's always been told to us, or told at least, you know, as someone who's, you know, going back decades, you know, following this program. I've never heard it that way where the governor has some kind of power. Now, yeah, closing it off and being like, no, you're not allowed to play games here anymore. That's one thing. But for the athletic director, for that option to be on the table, it's like, wait, what? That's not the way it's ever been told to us. But yeah, regardless, I do think this is the last year. And if politics come into play on this, it's gonna piss a lot of people off. You know, they're gonna be pretty upset if it does come down to something where Little Rock is telling you what you can and can't do up in Fayetteville. That's gonna create a little bit of tension there. But I think this will be it. And it'll kind of be sad. There's a part of me. There is so Miracle on Markham 1 and 2. Some awesome games. I've been down there. I tailgated once. It's a great tailgating place. It's a great place to tailgate before game and after. It'll be sad to see it go, but it's long overdue. And
okay. So, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
It's one of those things where, and Georgia has their own issues, by the way. You're not alone in this. I mean, we have the Jacksonville situation. Should that be home and home? Should it be Atlanta and Jacksonville or something? So we've got our own issues, and that always comes back to recruiting. Kirby wants the recruits on campus, and Jacksonville wants the money, right? And Atlanta wants the money. So that's what and it's this big thing, always, forever. But let's pull this back down onto the field a little bit. I mean, Taylor Green's your quarterback. We got to figure out, like you said, who's going to rush the passer. Pitball seemed to think about, he likes how athletic this team is. He says, I have a really good football team. Now, do you believe him when he says it? Do you think they've improved their athleticism that much? And it sounds like he wants to be aggressive. So, like, he mentioned the linebackers, and he said, "I think we ought to bring them." Well, immediately my mind jumps to Sorey, right, former Bulldog, who's now out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they could do some things with those guys. He's a heck of an athlete. I mean, how do you see it on the field?
Well, okay, this is a tricky one because first off, who on earth thought that, Andrew Armstrong last year, who's obviously not here, he's moved on, tried to get drafted, and unfortunately I thought he should have been, but he wasn't. But who would have thought that, the guy that's going to get drafted the highest was someone who wasn't even a big part of this offense a year ago? And wide receiver, I can't believe I'm brain farting on his name right now. Oh my gosh, 3rd round draft pick, and I'm just brain farting on him. This is evidence right here. I tell my audience all the time when players leave or when we shift into a new year, I'm in new year mode. I've already put the last year behind me.
Right.
But anyways, you lose him. Armstrong's gone. You've lost so much of your scoring. All the points on the field are gone outside of Taylon Green, your quarterback, and you lose a couple of guys to Ole Miss. And those are key guys. These are guys Luke has. Definitely someone who I'm surprised he didn't have a better year a year ago. Was basically a non-factor. Of course, there was some health issues there. It's and by the way, I was thinking of Isaac TeSlaa. I cannot believe I brain farted on his name. Isaac TeSlaa is who I was talking about. He was drafted in the 3rd round. But so a lot of transfers from schools you probably barely know. It's not like this is a roster full of guys from Georgia, from Alabama. They didn't pull the equivalent of like a Drew Sanders, who they picked up from Alabama, who was a former 5-star linebacker. They don't have that on offense. Like, none of these guys were big-time former players from SEC schools or, other Power 4 schools. These are a lot of guys that are from places you've barely heard of, right? They did lose Ismail Cece, and he was from Stanford. Didn't really contribute a whole lot, but he was someone they thought that would. But then you've got Omega Blake at wide receiver, who there's a lot of hype around Omega Blake, who I think actually initially signed with South Carolina and he ended up at Charlotte. So, not a lot of super well-known guys. In fact, I think one of the guys that I am excited about, who's from a small school, Rohan Jones. Jones, who's a really good get, played at Montana State, and pure athlete. He's a pure pass catching tight end. I don't think, and Pittman kind of talked about him a little bit today. He said, we're going to send him downfield. And they got Platt, who was a former 4-star that played at Texas A&M. He's more of a dual guy. He can kind of do a little bit of both. He can block and he can catch. So there's one guy that's from a big school in Texas A&M, talking about Platt. But it's just a lot of it's such a tough question to answer because last year it was kind of the same thing. Andrew Armstrong played at Texas A&M Commerce, right? TeSlaa, you'd have to point on a map where TeSlaa played. I'm not even, somewhere in Michigan. And of course wasn't a big part of the offense, although he should have been a year ago. Broden played at Bowling Green. This has kind of been a reoccurring thing for Arkansas. They can't bring in the big-time talent, and they are losing the guys that they get out of high school that are 4-stars, that are big-time players. They can't keep them. So they have this issue where they're trying to fill up their bowl with, instead of like legit oatmeal made from scratch, they're pouring in that Quaker Oats crap. And I apologize, I'm not calling these players crap, by the way. It's just not as good as the real thing, man. And that's what they continuously have to do every year. They're not bringing in talent from bigger schools that are bigger names. They're getting these kids that are out of nowhere schools. So it's a tough question to answer. Are they better? I think they will be. Year 2 Bobby Petrino with a year 2 Taylon Green. On paper, I think they might be. But I don't know. It's kind of a coin flip.
Well, just to sort of stick and stay right there about players' movement and that sort of stuff. I mean, Sam did say today, hopefully, with the rev share, that's going to change the situation at Arkansas. He believes that when the field was more level, that they were obviously having higher win seasons. And then when the influx of NIL and big money and without guardrails came in, they went the way they went, losing players. Now, on some level, you're like, okay, that sounds like a bit of a cop-out. On the other level, we know it's an issue. So do you think it's going to have any impact at all?
I don't know. And I've had this talk with Courtney Mims, who works for Pictorial Nation down here. She's on the Ask Mike segment. I love Courtney. She's a big part of our community in Tuss Talk in the Discord. And, last I talked to her about it, she felt like it would probably even things out a little bit, but it may not go the way that we all think that it will. And, I need to get it updated because that was right when all this revenue share stuff was going on. So I kind of wonder where she's at with it now.
Yeah,
I don't know. I really don't. It seems to me, and this is going to sound wild because it didn't happen, but what I felt like would have helped Arkansas, it was the chaos that we had before revenue sharing. Now, give me a second. I know everyone's going to say, "Well, wait a minute, Sam Pittman, it hasn't worked. They've they lost out. They weren't that good. They got crushed in the portal and all that." What I mean is, had they had a more exciting guy, I'm not necessarily saying someone that wins 10 games a year. I'm not saying 2010, 2011 Bobby Petrino, although, yeah, that would have helped a ton. But I'm saying if they had something to be excited about, that chaos, a program like Arkansas could have really blossomed. And the proof in the pudding to me is Ole Miss. Ole Miss actually benefited from all this. Now, a lot of that was fan made stuff. Their NIL, their collective was very much fan induced. But why was that? They had an exciting head coach. They had Lane Kiffin, maybe one of the brightest offensive minds, certainly a king of faking injuries. We know that.
Right.
One of the brightest offensive minds in college football, and a guy that was at Alabama, and he's coached in the pros, and he coached at USC. Arkansas has Sam Pittman. So, and again, I'm not trying to slap Pittman around. I'm with you. I like Pittman. I do like Pittman. And Pittman, off the record, Pittman is actually he is exactly who you think he is. He's a good guy. Yes. I want him to succeed so bad. In the same way that I wanted Mike Anderson to succeed at Arkansas. But the writing was on the wall for like 3 years. This is not going to work out. And they waited it out. They're doing the same thing with Sam. But just because he's a good guy, it doesn't mean he's necessarily the right fit. And I think had they had a more exciting coach, Arkansas's been burned so much. They have been burned. Oh, my God. They did the right thing. I'm not sure how many programs would have fired Bobby Petrino. I really don't. Because this is a win-at-all-cost sport. And Jeff Long did the right thing, and Arkansas has done nothing but pay the price ever since. And it's the right call. They should have fired him. I don't know, honestly, how many programs would have done that. And yeah, it was pretty damning, the things that he did. I'm sure there would have been a suspension, at some of these other schools. Oh, we'll suspend him for, half the season, whatever. Jeff Long said, no, I'm firing you. And he got rid of him. And obviously they went the Jeff Long route for an interim, and Brett Bielema crashed and burned at the end, and Chad Morris, oh my God. It's just kind of there's not a fan base. And then you think about baseball, how many times they have come short in baseball, and basketball's getting there, but it's like this fan base. Oh my God. And I know everybody could say this. 95% of college athletic or fans of college programs can say this. I don't know of a more deserving fan base that at least should get a championship in one of these damn sports, whether it be baseball or football. It's crazy. I know they did it in basketball. I remember watching that. They almost did it 2 times in a row in 94, 95. But holy cow, they have just been burned ever since doing the right thing. And Pittman got them. He has built a stable ground, right? A platform in which you can maybe build on top of. I just don't think he can build any further. I think he's maxed it out. And again, kind of going back to what you asked me, and I've been asked this several times, like, is just Arkansas on paper, do you think they're better? And I cannot answer this question because I don't know.
Well, you're not going to like the next question then, because it's time for me. It's time for me to hold your feet to the fire and say,
Okay.
what is fair? What is fair, rational, and reasonable as we look at 25? Where do you think they're going to end up? And I'm not saying you have to prognosticate championships or any of that. I'm just saying a win-loss number. And maybe in this situation, as much how it happens, how do they look? And does that matter moving forward?
So I usually wait, and not to kind of pee on your blanket here.
Me too. I wait too.
I wait till the end of fall camp usually to formulate a good structured, here's where I'm at. And I've been pretty close a couple of times. I predicted 8 wins in 21, and I was told I was crazy. Well, guess what they did? They won 8 games. But they had won 3 conference games the year before, and I just saw enough of a blueprint there. Like, wow, they can build on top of this. That, and they had Kendall Briles as an offensive coordinator, and that certainly helps, when you're bringing him back. But I will say, at first glance, without doing any of the heavy lifting at looking at every single one of their matchups. Now, I'm going to do that in the fall and get a better idea, which I'm already doing. To be fair, I'm doing my homework now as we speak, but I mean, after fall camp, I'll have that completely done. First glance, they look like about a 4-18.
Okay. Because I think analytics have them right at 6, right? Like right at 6, according to ESPN, I think.
Yeah. Again, that's first glance, and I think they're at 5 to 6 wins, depending on where you look. I like Taylen Green a lot. I don't know how to feel about the right side of the line of scrimmage. I know they're going to put in McCroy, who's the big time 4-star. Who played at Oregon a year. Well, he went to Oregon last year, and he's a Razorback this year. I think they're going to plug him in at right tackle. So you're going to have a redshirt freshman there, and they're going to have either Blackstock or Harris playing at right guard. Well, I'm going to tell you, those guys do not pass the eye test. And then if you go back and look at their PFF scores, the deeper analytics that just tell you what's going on, not PFF's bizarre system, it's not good. And so I think that right side of the line of scrimmage could be a huge vulnerability for this offense. I don't yet know what to make of Braylon Russell because we just didn't get enough of him last year. And I think his ceiling is high, but how high exactly, I'm not sure. We haven't seen enough of him. I don't know what to make of this receiving core because, again, they're coming from schools that you've never heard of, and we just don't have enough tape that really stands out and you go, oh, that's a home run there. Taylen Green, I think, will improve. I don't think he'll have the stats that he did a year ago because, their non-con schedule is absolutely brutal. And then you look at their road schedule, right? This is one of the toughest schedules in the country. It's at least top 3, top 4 in the SEC, which is saying a lot. Defense, I don't like their pass rush. I don't think they're going to have much of one. Outside of their linebacker core, I really don't know where their strength is on defense. I know they made a lot of moves in the secondary in the offseason, including getting a big-time JUCO corner. But there's just so much movement. And again, this is why I say first glance. This is not my final, it's not my final pick. I might go up. Definitely don't think I'll go down. But I could see them probably getting 4 wins, maybe, definitely just 1 SEC win. And then 3 non-con wins. And that's kind of you think about it, look, I mean, outside of their first game, their non-con games are not super easy. Arkansas State is very well coached. Then you have Notre Dame, right? So, this is a very tough schedule. So I kind of worry a little bit about what does this team do when the chips are down? Can they recover? Can they find a win? However, and I will say this, Sam, if he does one thing, he racks up a ton of moral victories, a lot of 1-possession losses. It's like the most in the SEC in the last however many years. He does get 1 win a year he's not supposed to get. And he did that last year with Tennessee. Now, that was at home, but, he did. He got that win.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I've just got a lot of questions about some key areas. You know, they're going to break in the former Georgia Tech left tackle Robinson, who I guess shared snaps at left tackle last year for Georgia Tech, but a very solid pass blocker, both on tape and on the stat sheet. He's a very solidified pass blocker, something they need. They've moved Carmona from left tackle to left guard. Boom, that's a legit probably 3rd or 4th round draft pick right there at left guard. And that's the other thing of this. One of the tools that I use, or one of the things I kind of look at, and this is when we get through fall camp, I'm going to get a good look at it. How much talent does this team really have? Let's be real. It's probably bottom 3 in the SEC. If we're being completely honest, how many draft picks are on this team? That's a pretty good indicator as to what you have to work with, right? Georgia loaded down with 5 stars, 1st-round picks, you name it. You may not be able to hoard the talent like you once could before the portal era, but by God, you know that 1st and 2nd teamer at Georgia is probably an all-conference potential top 3-round draft pick. Arkansas might have 1, you know, and that's what we're talking about here. That's why I like, when I look at it, I say maybe 4 wins, maybe they can find a 5th win. That's at first glance. Like I said, once we get through fall camp, you know, I'll probably have a different opinion. In fact, I know I will, but right now I would say 4.
Okay. Well, now comes the easy part, because you get to turn the lens across the conference and tell me what you think about my Bulldogs. There are legit questions on the roster across the 22, and it's all relative, obviously, but there are holes. Now, I don't call them concerns. I call them questions. We will see, because like you said, you would expect that there are players there. It's just that, especially on a national level, folks don't really know them. But this is where you from across the conference get to look and say, all right, here's what I think. So what do you think about Dogs?
Well, there is obviously the biggest question is your quarterback, right? Like Gunnar Stockton, I think in Georgia is probably the way we treat Taylon Green. Like a lot of people here are like, oh my God, this dude's potential greatness, right? And I have a feeling in Georgia they're doing the same thing. Like, oh, Gunnar Stockton's going to be great, you know, and he might be. I don't know. I think that's probably a legit question in Stockton. I like him. You know, now I'm not as up to date on your offensive line. I haven't, namely because we don't play you this year, so I haven't done hardly any research on Georgia. But I do know Zachariah Branch. What a hell of a get out of the portal. This dude, I know a little bit about him. This is a guy rumored to be like a mid 4.3. You know, he's like 5'11", I think, 185 pounds, something like that. I think he caught last year like almost 50 balls for USC, and was a big deal there. And I know they weren't super thrilled about losing him. I'm pretty big on Branch. I think he's a potential like big time player here in a Georgia offense with Stockton that could be a big, pretty nice little turnaround for them. You know, I know your offensive line, I think there are 0 transfers on the starting offensive line, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
I think these are all in-house.
Yes. They lost four draft picks, but they've got dudes coming back who played last year or who were recruited to the team. Right. So
yeah,
they played, but they have never been, you know, frontline guys, save one.
Yeah, Daniel Calhoun. He's the redshirt freshman, and I think really big on him. I think he's a former. If he wasn't a 5-star, he was a 5-star somewhere. I swear, I remember him coming up on my feed somewhere. But yeah, they're loaded to the brim with talent. Now, when you go beyond the surface, I don't know a ton about Georgia, but I guess the question's going to really be like how you're. I know the secondary is going to be loaded for Georgia. I think that might be the strength of your team, from what I gather. I would probably. I think to me it'd be a toss up between, because I don't know if I'm buying the Alabama stuff or not. I don't know if I'm buying it. I think they're the odds on. I think they're the 3rd favorite behind Texas and behind Georgia to win the whole thing, to win the conference. I mean, so I think I kind of believe I'm looking at. I think it's probably going to end up being Georgia taking the SEC, probably being the favorite to make it. I think they could probably go all the way. Now, when it comes to winning it all, because of the portal in the last 3 years, how things have just gotten so strange, and the playoffs they've twisted a little bit, and they've expanded the playoffs a little. I think Georgia. I'll say this: I think Georgia's definitely good enough to win the whole thing, but the question's probably going to come down to Gunnar Stockton. How good is he really? So that's probably where again, you obviously could speak a lot better to that than I can, but I didn't hear bad things out of spring camp about him. Not that I listened to a lot of it, but I didn't hear anything bad about him. And from what I understand, it sounds like Georgia's faster. And I think it's probably going to be a toss-up between Texas, Georgia, and I think LSU is going to be Garrett Nussmeier. I like that dude a lot. I think LSU could be a problem. However, my hang up with them is their head coach, is Brian Kelly. I don't know if I could trust him. I don't know if I could trust him to get it done down at LSU. So I would probably take Georgia to either win. I think I would take them to win the SEC versus someone like a Texas or an LSU. You never know about Ole Miss. I know a lot of people. I think the betting odds are pretty high on them. I'm not. I really think they're going to be one of the most overrated teams this year in the SEC. I don't. Again, I'm just. It's a quarterback thing for me. Like, I just don't know whether or not to buy into Ole Miss. I know they're missing so much of what made that defense great. You look at that defensive line; those guys are gone. And I don't think they replace them with as good or better parts. They got some, no doubt. They killed it in the portal. I just don't know if they're going to be as good. So I'd probably put like maybe an A&M or Tennessee, even though Iamaleava and his brother, thanks a lot, went back out west. But I would probably put Tennessee right there, maybe with Ole Miss, and maybe A&M kind of on top of those guys. Again, as you get through the off season, you start looking at things a little bit deeper, and you kind of have that moment where like, no, that team's actually going to be really good. I'm sure I'll have that moment, but I'm right now, my big three are definitely Texas, Georgia, and LSU.
Yeah, and just to share, I mean, I don't have them in an order yet, but my top five would be Texas, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and I was really looking at maybe A&M right there. But A&M burns you every year. Every year they're going to be better. Every year they fail to be better. But that just speaks to what I think of Elko, right? I like him, so we'll see as far as that's concerned.
He's a good hire. He was someone I would have taken at Arkansas, no doubt. I liked Elko a lot. I thought that was a good fit for A&M. If you can get it done at Duke, by God, you could probably get it done just about anywhere. So I'm kind of with you. I think A&M might be, and they do burn you. It doesn't matter who's coaching those guys, whether it's Jimbo, Sumlin. It doesn't matter. Like, they're going to burn you. You could have them at 11-1, and they might be trending that way, and then all of a sudden they lose to, they lose to some unranked, really bad bottom 4 SEC team or something. That's just kind of who they are.
Well, I mean, as up and down as they were at times last year, they still were playing for a trip to Atlanta when they lost to Texas. And they lost to Texas not in a pretty way, so they got to sort that out. But it's not like they were that bad last year, and they played Notre Dame this year too. So you'll have a common opponent there, and you can sort of look at them and be like, all right, well, this is what we did and what they did. Well, Ty, thank you so much, man. We have been talking up almost an hour. I didn't know we were going to go that long, but I appreciate that kind of conversation. So I hope you had a good time sitting in with us. If there's anything that I can ever do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. And if you will, we've talked about your community a little bit here. If we got some hardcore SECers in here like myself who want to check you out, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Tuss Talk. That's the actual channel name, the YouTube channel. And I'm not one of these guys that streams across all platforms. I only stream on YouTube. I know that's
me too.
That's a big no. Okay, so you're all right. So I'm not alone. I keep being told all the time you need to expand out to all these different platforms. I'm like, nah, I kind of like just being in one spot. But
I do stuff over there, but it's not the streaming. I don't currently stream over there anywhere else.
Yeah, well, for now I'm keeping it on YouTube, and right now we're doing Monday Night Lights. Now it's ironic because since we've named that show, we've only been able to go live on Monday nights twice. And it's typically a Tuesday night is when we've been able to get it going. But if you do come over to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button and just hit the notification bell. That way you know when I'm live. But right now, like I said earlier on Mark Rogers, I'm kind of torn between making content for Patreon. Now, that's different. That's not live streaming. Patreon and Tuss Talk YouTube. So that's kind of where I'm trying to find the balance, is keeping both those communities happy and giving them content. So but yeah, that's kind of what we're all about. And Tuss Talk Discord is it's about to get really, it's awake now because we have EA College Football 2.6 to play, which we do have 2 leagues going. We've got an offline and a Patreon league and an open league. But since we've got that going, Discord's starting to pop a little more. But football season, once fall camp starts, I'm sure you know it. It's about to get wild. Once it's in the air, once football's in the air, it's it kind of changes things a little bit, and it's easier to push out content. And so I'm really looking forward to it. Now, even though someone's going to come through and say I'm really pessimistic about Arkansas, I'm a football purist. I love the sport and I love talking about it.
Hey, well, that's why I wanted to have you on. Is because I knew we could actually have a conversation about it. And I feel you about the dual responsibilities. I have my own thing going on with a plus version, so I totally understand. So again, man, I appreciate you taking the time, making the time to come on and sit in with us. And again, if you need me, just give me a shout.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, Ty. Have a good evening, buddy.
You too.
All right, everybody, there you go. That's it. We took a walk out to the West. Would you call that the West or the Midwest? Let's just call it the Midwest, and say that we checked out the Arkansas Razorbacks, which is, again, a conversation I always enjoy. But now let's move it over and talk about Kentucky. Now, last year, as tough as they played Georgia and the victory that they got over Ole Miss down on the Grove, you have to sort of separate that version of Kentucky from the version that finished the season, which was that they had a rough go of it. They had a rough go of it in that they were not able to continue that over the course of the season. But tell you what, let's put a pin in Kentucky. Let's go ahead and jump ourselves over here and talk about a little Missouri, because Eli Drinkwitz came to the podium today and made it fun. When he stepped up there, we heard everything from talking about vacations and Disney and fight songs to the Epstein files. And I'll tell you what, that was a lot of conversation after the fact too among the talking class. But I want to keep things focused on what was happening on the field today. And they brought a nice contingent of players with them, even though they might not have been names that we knew like from the last couple of seasons that were national names. Eli obviously represented Missouri pretty well today. And I've got somebody here with us now who's going to tell us more about it than I could ever tell you. And that would be John Miller from Locked On Missouri, who has been kind enough to squeeze us in this evening and fill in all these gaps for me that I just can't seem to do. So John, thanks for making the time, buddy. Glad to have you. Oh,
hey, thanks for having me.
There you are. Okay, there was a little bit of a delay, so I wanted to make sure I had your audio there.
A little lag there. Here, maybe I'll get a little closer inside. There we go. I'll get inside. Maybe that'll help.
There we go. All right. So John, let's just start at the beginning. Let's just start at what you think you heard from Elijah and the guys today, because there was a lot. He covered a lot of territory today. Just how did it sound to you?
Well, once again, I think we saw one of the best entertainers in all of college football. I think he's really taken up the mantle from Steve Spurrier, taken up the mantle from, frankly, I think he's even more entertaining than Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is a guy who's fun on social media. But to me, the undisputed king of SEC media days right now has got to be Eli Drinkwitz. So that's my main takeaway there. I mean, the SEC media days has really just become kind of an entertainment event and something for podcasters like us to bank a lot of shows. But that's my main takeaway from today.
Well, I appreciated the fact that somebody in the audience did ask him about Kansas being back on the schedule, because I know that's a big deal for Missouri. You got any thoughts on that?
Of course. I mean, I'm very happy that Kansas is on the schedule, ironically, because I hate them so much. But that's a good thing. Hatred, good sports hatred is great for college football. And that's something that, well, with all the conference realignment the last few years, it's something that's fallen by the wayside. And before the Missouri Kansas the football rivalry was suspended after the 2011 season when the Tigers entered the SEC. I'm just excited for the rest of the country to be reminded how much these two fan bases absolutely cannot stand each other.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. That's why I'm going to watch. I'm not even going to joke. I think that's going to be the most interesting part of it going into that game for me. Now, there were some real on the field things that they talked about today. Obviously, the defense, we'll get to that in just a second. I guess the thing that we have to address first, though, is the quarterback, what looks like a legitimate battle right now at Missouri. Do you have any thoughts, insight on how that's going? Because it sounds like Sam Horn is, giving them a run for their money over there.
I've heard a lot of people in the media on the Missouri side say that, and I think that there are people in the program probably telling reporters that and all that good stuff. I'm just not sure how much I believe it. I'm really not. I think when you bring in somebody like Bo Prabula from Penn State for the reported price of about $1.5 million for this year in NIL, that is a king's ransom for a guy who doesn't have very much experience. So that tells me it's not really just about the money, it's more about the belief. It tells me that Eli Drinkwitz not only believes in Prabula, but obviously thought that, hey, I need at least a big time insurance policy for Horn, because if he had all the belief in Horn in the world, I don't think you make that move, to be brutally honest with you.
Well, yeah, and to your point there, I mean, Horn is coming back off of a major injury, right? So it sounds like he's doing all right, but that is in his
Sure.
history. So there you go. One of the big sort of themes that Eli stepped to the podium today with was the what? How did he phrase it? Production over potential. So if we look at that, I said off the top there, we may not know the names, Thies, we may not know Luther Burton, we may not know Brady Cook kind of level names. But there are some new faces on this team. Kevin Coleman Jr. There's a name that popped up today, and they talked about the running back, Ahmad Hardy, as guys who might really show up. And I got to say, it seems like Drinkwitz has an ability to plug and play at that running back position and just blow everybody away every year with a guy that you're like, dude, I wish I had that guy. Look how that guy runs, and they're just finding them everywhere. So does any of that feel right to you?
Yeah, I think especially on the running back position, I think Ahmad Hardy is going to be a star this season in the SEC. I really do, because he's got as much talent, I'd say more talent than any running back that Eli Drinkwitz has ever had. And like you say, I mean, his general system and the way he likes to play football, usually he has one bell cow running back. They're usually
Mhm.
pretty successful too.
Yeah, yeah, and they really did talk a lot today about Coleman too, about a weapon outside that they really think is going to do some things. So I'm with you though on Hardy. That kid looks like a player. If we switch it over to the defensive side, there are 21 portal ads out of this new 38 that are on the roster this year. So there's 20 returning starts. He made it a point to say today on the defensive side of the ball. How do you feel about that unit? Because as a Georgia guy, obviously there's a former Georgia guy, Damon Wilson, who's over there that we were counting on, who decided to go to Missouri. So we just looked at that as a production move. Like he wanted an opportunity to jack his numbers up a little bit. That's kind of how I saw it. Do you think that unit's going to be as good this year as maybe they were last year?
I think so. I think this is going to be a really good Tiger defense. I think they've got a chance to be even better, because really the biggest question mark I would have would be the corner position, and I think they've got some talent there. I just think having another year of a couple returners there in the system, their top two corners are back, and they added Stephen Hall from Washington State in the portal as well. So if that's your biggest question, I think Missouri's in pretty good shape, because that front seven is loaded. I really like the safety position. That's just, I think that could be one of the best defenses in the SEC for sure.
Okay, so it sounds like we're getting dangerously close to talking about the fact that Eli's really confident in this team and he thinks they can do some big things. I mean, I mentioned earlier they start the season with 6 games at home. They could very easily go 5-1 in that stretch. And then we're looking up and they're a player. They're going to play great defense and hopefully run the football really well. And as long as they don't turn the ball over, this sounds like a recipe for a winner. So let me just ask you straight up. What's fair and reasonable for us to expect from Missouri, in your opinion?
I think 8, 9 wins is a really good baseline. I think that's a fair baseline for this team. I think they have they have higher aspirations than that. I think this team definitely thinks it can make the playoff. I know Drinkwitz loves the overall talent on this roster, thinks it's maybe the best he's had at Missouri, and certainly that 23 team would have made a 12-team playoff if that format were around. And well, last year's team obviously didn't make it; it wasn't that far off. So that's really saying something. And for as much as Eli Drinkwitz likes to be entertaining, I don't know that he overestimates his roster at this point in the season either.
Yeah, that's true. He does show up and show out a little bit in front of the mic, but he never seems to get out over his skis, if you will. Now comes the easy part. We took a look at your team. If you don't mind, turn your gaze back towards Athens. There are questions on our roster here as far as my dogs are concerned, but when you look over here, what is it that you see? How do you think Georgia's season is going to play out this year?
Well, from my perspective, I really think Georgia's the safest bet in the conference. I think this is going to be kind of a wild SEC season, but I really think the Dogs are as good a bet as anybody to be a top five type team in the entire country. I just think with all their talent on both sides of the line of scrimmage, I just don't see how it's going to be much worse than that. Whether the quarterback position works out or not, the receivers, I know the last couple years of so, or especially last season, I think the receivers maybe weren't up to snuff. But yeah, I think there's some things that could. The passing game is what I would look at as far as maybe keeping them back from the absolute, truly elite team in the entire country. But man, I think they've got the highest floor of anybody, really, certainly in the SEC, maybe in the entire country.
Well, I'll take it. I'll just leave it at that. I have a lot of questions. I could dig deeper on some of those things, but I will happily take that. If they perform that well, then we're going to be a happy group over here. John, thank you so much for squeezing us in, taking the time to offer a little insight. I feel smarter already, man. Is there anything you want our viewers to know about how they can find you?
Yeah, sure. If you want to hear the Missouri perspective, or you just happen to be a Mizzou fan too, check all my workout Locked On Mizzou on YouTube and wherever you get audio podcasts. And if you like me in short form, maybe check out TikTok, all those other social media accounts at Locked On Mizzou. Pretty simple.
Nice, John. Thank you so much, man. I hope you have a good evening. I appreciate you spending some time with us.
Same to you. Thanks.
All right. There are things I can't say on YouTube, but I say them on How About Them Dogs Plus. Want to learn more? Just click the link below. Go premium. Be elite. Now, I appreciate that. I appreciate John jumping in here with us and filling us in on Missouri. It was a tight squeeze, but we got it done because we want to touch all the bases we can touch. And I like it when we have guys that can come in and speak on their teams a little bit more profoundly than I can. But let's go back to that Kentucky discussion. Because as I was saying earlier, Stoops last year at Kentucky didn't look like the Kentucky we had gotten used to, right? They had gone 8 straight seasons with a bowl game. And then last year, they went 4-8, 1-7 inside the conference. And even though they played the Dogs for all they're worth, even though they went on the road and did what Georgia couldn't do and beat Ole Miss and Oxford, that was just one of those seasons that got away from them. And it felt wrong. If you know Stoops and the way he coaches his team, it felt wrong that it wound up the way it did. I think everybody had higher expectations for them last year than what they wound up doing. And the kicker is they said, we have to rehaul the whole thing. Now, they do have consistency at the offensive coordinator position this year, which is something that they hadn't had in recent memory. And that's going to be good for the offense as a whole and for the quarterback in particular. But they have 50 new players on this roster. 26 of them are transfers. So when they talked about rehauling it and needing to get the culture right and get rid of some guys maybe who didn't fit what they were trying to do, that's exactly what they did. And Mark, in a moment of like brutal honesty at the podium today, when he was talking about his team and talking about being a head coach and having to step to the podium and answer difficult questions when you have a down season, I mean, that's what he wants to do. He's not going to shy away from it, but he let the veil drop just a little bit. And he was legit honest when he just straight up said, this is hard. It's hard to go out there and rebuild this program after you go through a year like that, after you've had a run of success the way we've had, and then you go and break it down. the way they did last year and only have 4-8, go 4-8 over the 12-game season. Nothing goes the way you want it to. Nobody wants that, but they understand that there's work to do. The reason I brought up the offensive coordinator earlier was because they have a new quarterback in town. Of course, among those transfers, this one is Zach Calzada, a name you might know because he was at Texas A&M for a little while. He's bounced around the league a little bit, but they seem to think that he's going to be the answer to the questions at quarterback. And with the offensive coordinator coming back for the second year inside the program, they have some stability in what it is they want to do. Now they have to gel everything together to see if they can make that happen. And that is going to be the biggest question for this Kentucky team moving forward. I think that this is a unit that is probably going to end up somewhere around bowl eligibility. I think there's a good chance they could get to 6 wins. And that would be good enough to get them into some bowl game somewhere. I'm never one who tries to predict which bowl game because there's so much involved in it. But I do think that if they get back to being physical the way Kentucky has been for the past few years, then, and even last year, they were physical. It just offensively, they couldn't figure it out. If they can just get back to being that physical football team that is going to make you know that you were in a difficult game every time you play them, protect the football, I think they can get back to bowl eligibility and change things around up on the bluegrass. It's going to be a tough task. When you turn your roster over that much, when you have 50 new faces on the team, it's not quite as much as Mississippi State has, but you can see the number if you're Kentucky. You can look out there and see the number that Mississippi State put on the board. So that's a lot of players coming into your program that are new. And you have to take them, teach them, show them the way, and then hope that you make good choices in who it is that you've brought into your program. So that's the Kentucky Wildcats. To finish the day, here at day 4 at SEC Media Days, we had Texas A&M and Mike Elko. And you can see on the banner here, he brought in 3 fellas that maybe you don't know their names, but they're team captains and they're quality football players. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on them because he didn't bring his quarterback, which is the name that probably everybody's going to know, and that would be Marcel Reed. Now, he's only a sophomore, but he showed us enough last year to show that he's a dangerous football player and that Texas A&M has something to build on. He has to become more consistent. He has to show that he can do it over the course of a season and be a leader both on and off the field for A&M, but he is firmly entrenched as their number 1 quarterback. So they are high on what Marcel Reed can do for them. The thing is, he can't do it by himself. So they've lost some players in the portal, i.e. Noah Thomas, who left Texas A&M to come to Georgia at the wide receiver position. But that doesn't mean they don't have players. One of the top recruits in the country last cycle, the 25-24 cycle, was Terry Bussey. Now, he was classified as an athlete. And then going into last year when he was on campus, in fall camp, they split time with him. He was both working at defensive back and at wide receiver. And that's something that not everybody can do. Not everybody is Travis Hunter, right? Not everybody is Champ Bailey. You can't just do that and expect to be really good at either one of those positions. But as the season went along, Bussey got more and more opportunities at wide receiver, and you could really see that he has talent there. He's an athletic playmaker with the ball in his hands. This year, the thing that's changed is that they've moved him to wide receiver consistently. That's all he's going to focus on. So there's a real opportunity for him to show what he's about as a wide receiver and make a huge jump from year 1 to year 2. So you have Reed, who is an explosive playmaker who can run the football a little bit as well as throw it at the quarterback position. And then you have a budding superstar in Terry Bussey out on the outside. Texas A&M is going to be able to move the ball, one would think. But overall, last year for Elko was spent breaking down, and then rebuilding what Texas A&M was. And he spoke from the podium today about just how hard that is when you have to go, even coming from a place like Duke where you might not think much about them. He had done such a good job there that they were way more stable than what A&M was when he arrived. So when he came over from Duke last season, he had to tear it down to rebuild it. And last season, they wound up going 8-5. Even with that, when they were playing Texas at the end of the season, there was a berth to Atlanta in the SEC championship game on the line. If Texas A&M had won, they would have had to have some help, but it could have happened. And they were sitting there at 7-5 at that point, or I'm sorry, 8-4 at that point. So Texas A&M is the question, as I mentioned earlier in the show. The question with them is the same as it always is. Are they actually going to deliver this year? We know they have talent. We know they have a really good head coach. I really like Mike Elko, but they always seem to let you down, stub their toe, lose games they shouldn't lose, never rise to the occasion. Is this the year it's different? They're going to be exciting, but are they going to be able to be consistent enough to get it done over the course of an SEC season and actually jump into that upper echelon of teams here inside the conference? I'm not certain, but one thing's for sure is because of the talent that they have out there, they are going to be able to hold my attention. And when A&M's on the screen, odds are I'm going to be watching. So there's Texas A&M. High hopes, talented players. Elko sounds confident. We'll see. So we've made it to the end. We are here on day 4. SEC Media Days 2025 have come to a close. I certainly hope that you have enjoyed all of our shows this week. We went way out on a limb, had big aspirations. I hope we delivered for you. I hope you feel smarter as an SEC fan now than you did on Monday morning, because we've talked to a lot of very, very informed individuals and have told us a lot about all these teams across the league. So I really do hope that you've enjoyed being here with us. I certainly have appreciated you being here with us. And feel free, drop me a comment below the video. Let me know, is this the kind of thing you want to see moving forward? Or would you rather just keep it focused closer to home? Let's talk about the Bulldogs, Randy, and let everybody else talk about their teams. I want to know. So drop me a comment. Tell me so. Until next time, you guys take care of each other. Take care of your friends. Take care of your families. Take care of your loved ones. And as always, go Dogs!